Hey, it's Rachel Cooke, your modern mentor. I'm the founder of Lead Above Noise, where we help leaders activate performance without sacrificing humanity. This is part 3 in our series on burnout. In part 1, we redefined burnout not just as too much work, but as too little of what makes work meaningful. We talked about what happens when we're missing clarity, momentum, connection, or purpose. And then in part 2, we looked at the burden we're placing on managers and at how they're carrying so much more than they need to, or that's productive. And it's time to lay down some of those unnecessary burdens. And now we're at part 3, and this is where we begin to rebuild. But slowly and gently, because burnout is not a binary. You're not either burned out or not burned out. You don't fix it in one fell swoop. You chip away at it. You make space for small experiments. You choose shifts that create breathing room and relief. One conversation, one reset at a time. And remember, if you're looking for more support or resources, head over to leadabovenoise.com/burnout for some more goods over there. So today I want to use a framework that I've used with so many teams, and it's my activation framework, which stands on the 4 pillars of deliver, develop, connect, and thrive. And when we understand each of these, the framework becomes our roadmap for healing while dialing up our impact. Each pillar gives us a lens, a way to look at how we're working and how it might be fueling or quietly draining ourselves or our teams. And I want to use each pillar to ask a few questions that you can bring to your teams or just sit with yourself. Let this be an invitation to reflect, to collaborate, and to experiment. And then after each set of questions, I'll offer up a couple of tangible actions you might think about taking. Not full solutions, but starting points. Okay, let's get into it. We start with deliver, which asks the question, are we making the work for us? One of the biggest myths that we've named in this series is that burnout is always about volume. Because often it's not. It's about friction and how hard the work feels. It's about inanity or inefficiency or death by status meeting treadmill we're all running on. And these are what deplete us. So here are some questions to ask your team. What parts of our work are feeling harder than they probably should? Where are we spending energy without really seeing a value that matches? And if we could deliver the same results with fewer frustrations, what is one change that we would start by making? And maybe you try one of these. Maybe you replace a recurring check-in meeting with a shared doc or a short voice memo, something a little faster and a little more human. Maybe you look for a repeat snag in your workflow, like missing inputs, redundant approvals, and you propose one small tweak, not an overhaul, just peeling back a layer. Or maybe you push down a decision that your team is ready to make without your involvement. This is where we start to reclaim energy, not by doing less, but by removing the sludge that's slowing us down and sucking our souls out through our eyeballs. Next, we've got develop. And this asks, are we working in ways that stretch, grow, and excite us? In episode 1, I mentioned that burnout can show up not as exhaustion, but sometimes just as boredom. When we're stuck in sameness, when we're not challenged or stretched, our days start to feel heavy, even if they're not technically full. And finding ways to learn in the rhythm of the work is an amazing way to drive up our engagement while expanding what we're able to deliver to our organizations. It's a win-win. So here are some questions to ask your team. What part of our work is screaming for reinvention? And if we had to rebuild it from scratch, what might we do differently? Where could we start to trade expertise amongst each other? What's something you do well that somebody else might want to learn? And what are you curious to learn from a peer? And when's the last time you taught, coached, or mentored someone? What would it look like to build more moments like that into our workflow? And then maybe you try something small. Maybe you invite someone to co-lead a regular task with you, not just to help, but to really learn and grow through it. Or you ask a team member to lead a team meeting. Give them the chance to build it, design it, facilitate it. Or maybe you ask a team member to bring a new approach or a new tool to an upcoming meeting. Give them the spotlight, a moment that adds value and energy to the routine, all while you're learning together. Finding ways to discover flow, to feel excited about how the work is feeding our intellectual curiosity can be amazing in pushing burnout back out the door. Next, we've got connect, which asks, are we doing this with each other or just near each other? Disconnection is everywhere at work right now. Hybrid setups make it harder to feel in sync. Trust has taken a hit in so many organizations, and the pace of work often means that we skip the small moments that help us to feel human. But research tells us that community and belonging are essential, and when we dial it up, it fuels our spirits in ways that help inoculate us against burnout. So if you want to explore this with your team, you might ask, where do you feel seen and supported in our day-to-day, and where do you feel like you're going it alone? What helps you build trust with a teammate or feel trusted by a teammate? What elements of our work are suffering because we're working in tandem rather than actually leaning into and leveraging each other's strengths as a force multiplier of our collective talents? And then maybe you try a small experiment. Maybe you introduce a monthly spotlight and support session where one person shares a current challenge or opportunity and the team responds, not with critique, but with ideas, offers of help, or reflections on similar experiences. It's like a group coaching session. It builds vulnerability and reminds everyone that no one is doing this alone. Maybe you take one project and you run a strength-based reset. You ask, what does each person bring that we're underutilizing? And then you shift some of the responsibilities to ensure that people are able to infuse their best value. For teams spread across hybrid or distributed models, pick one recurring moment each week that's totally human. Maybe it's 5 minutes at the top of a meeting or an optional Friday coffee chat. The goal isn't performance, it's just to connect. Burnout thrives in silence and separation. Connection doesn't require a retreat. It just needs some space. And finally, thrive, which asks, are we building something sustainable or are we just surviving right now? This is the one we skip most often. We tell ourselves that we'll rest after the quarter closes, after the next launch, the next fire drill. But thriving is not a reward for surviving. It's the thing that actually fuels our ability to keep going. So ask your team, where in our work do you feel the most agency to shape how things get done, to manage your time or protect your focus, and where are you feeling boxed in? What's one part of how we work that makes it hard to set boundaries, even when we want to? And when have you felt truly seen or appreciated? And what made that moment feel real for you? And how can we start to make that kind of connection more common? So this week, you might run a boundary reset with your team. Identify one behavior that everyone agrees to protect, like no meetings before 9 a.m. or no expectation to answer messages after hours, and then commit to holding each other to it. Or audit one recurring ritual, like a meeting or review cycle, and ask what it costs in time and energy, and then design a simpler, lighter version together. Or start a 5-minute Friday practice where each person names one moment they felt really proud of or appreciated. Keep it consistent and keep it human. Burnout is a systems issue. It is not a personal problem. It grows inside of cultures that reward overfunctioning and that don't honor boundaries. So part of the work is noticing what isn't sustainable and then beginning to shift slowly and together. If even one of these questions or ideas sparks something for you or your team, that's movement. That's activation. This is where we start to change. You don't need to fix it all, not today. You just need to stop pretending that burnout will solve itself. And if you want to bring this work into your organization, I would love to support you. I can deliver a talk to your team, run an in-person workshop, whatever you need. Visit leadabovenoise.com/burnout or reach out anytime. Next week, we'll close out the series with part 4, where we'll talk about how to sustain momentum, make these changes stick, and build a system that holds you up instead of wearing you down. Until then, thanks so much for listening and have a successful week. Modern Mentor is a quick and dirty tips podcast. It's audio engineered by Dan Firabend. Our director of podcasts is Brandon Getchis. Our podcast and advertising operations specialist is Morgan Christensen. Our digital operations specialist is Holly Hutchings. And our marketing contractor is Nathaniel Hoops.